Well, hello, that's me again. Today is November 17th, 2023. It is Friday. Happy Friday. Thank God it's Friday, I guess. So, and before we go into what I'm basically writing my fourth book about, part of it anyway, and it requires a serious elaboration, basically. But I want to start, obviously, with the issue of Gaza, because still people will be asking, you know what, yeah, what's your position? I will start with, you know what, with Mr. Roger Waters. And Mr. Roger Waters, for his position on Gaza, is, as it turned out, was barred from South American hotels over Israeli pressure. And guess what? Israeli groups in Uruguay and I believe Argentina too, they, basically started to sabotage his checking into hotels. And for example, as Roger commented himself, somehow these idiots of the Israeli lobby managed to co-opt all hotels in Buenos Aires and Montevideo and organize this extraordinary boycott based on the malicious lies about me. The presidents of the Central Israelite Committee of Uruguay and BNAI, whatever NGO, Rory Schneider and Franklin Rosenfeld had threatened to launch a campaign against the Sofitel hotel chain if Waters was allowed to stay there. The Pink Floyd frontman takes advantage of his fame as an artist to lie and spew his hatred towards Israel and all Jews. Well, it's all BS, by the way, and I can tell you that Roger, and I do not agree with all his political positions, although of course he is a musical and poetic genius behind the fame of Pink Floyd. But I have to tell you that actually he being anti-Zionist and being anti-Semite is not the same. For example, I do not support Hamas in any way, but it doesn't mean that I do not reflect on the basically humanitarian crisis and essentially genocide which Israel unleashed in Gaza. So there you go. Same with Roger. Being anti-Zionist and anti-Jewish is not the same. But you know what? These are Israeli lobbyists in the South America, so there you go. But I think so Roger gonna be okay. He is no doubt very wealthy man and very influential, so somebody will gladly offer him a stay in those places. Now, once we're done with Gaza and all that, so I want to start with this. And it's, you know what, it's unbelievable that I have to go over this again and again, but here we have this situation. Suddenly, we have the reports from today that Ukrainian Marines claim multiple bridgeheads across a key Russian strategic barrier. So Kiev Ukrainian military said Friday its troops had secured multiple bridgeheads on the eastern bank of Dnieper River in Kherson region. A small but potentially significant strategic advantage in the midst of war largely and standstill. Well, of course they lie always because it's not at standstill. There basically annihilation of what's left of armed forces of Ukraine continues apace and very successfully. And pay attention to the fact that we have here, which is the photo from evidently attempts to cross the Dnieper River by so-called Marines and in the rubber boats. And if this hasn't been enough, we have now other situation which is being perpetuated by the none other than CNN, of course, and it was written, and here it is, analysis by Nathan Hodge. Nathan Hodge is the shyster who obviously writes for all kinds of the outlets such as this garbage CNN, but because it is CNN and it is known for primarily being a fake news, and here he says that Ukraine claims a new foothold in the south. What does that mean for Kiev efforts to keep the West on its side? And he writes about, but a bright spot of news appeared this week when President Vladimir Zelensky told about this whole situation with the so-called yet another attempt on some kind of the success that basically they tried to cross a river. Okay, let me explain what is this all about. And we're gonna throw away those foothold to hold and what have you hold of the military terminology. Let's go and basically talk about what bridgehead is. And we will go and look at the even Wikipedia definition, because it is correct definition. And here it is. Although, let me put it this way, it's not just military strategy, it is on the operational and art and tactics, but a bridgehead or bridgehead is the strategically important area of ground around the end of a bridge of other place of possible crossing over a body of water, which at time of conflict is sought to be defended or taken over by the belligerent forces. Bridgeheads typically exist only for a few days, the invading forces either being thrown back or expanding the bridgehead to create a secure defensive lodgement area before breaking out to enemy territory, such as when the U.S. 9th Armored Division seized the Ludendorff Bridge and Remagen in 1945. During World War II, in some cases, a bridgehead may exist for months. Okay, let me demonstrate to you one of the most important bridgeheads in the history, because it is obviously was the largest amphibious operation in history. And here you can see yourself famous Overlord, basically the assault on the Normandy beaches on the 6th of June 1944, and basically landing of the Allied forces in the Western Europe. As you can see yourself, with the lines drawn, you can see yourself the progress from the beachheads to the bridgehead. And if you already can see yourself, especially when you look at the scale of the map. For example, there you can see yourself the cut which demonstrates to the segment which demonstrates to the 15 kilometer. You can see yourself that already by the 12th June of 1944, it expanded dramatically in sense that it's went from some separate beachheads into the full-blown bridgehead. And by the 30th of June 1944, you can see yourself how it progressed once the Red Army started its Operation Bagration and immediately trying to relieve, as was negotiated in Tehran, pressure on the Allied troops. And if you even briefly and very inaccurately try to look at this bridgehead, you will see yourself by the 30th of June, it's actually expanded to the to include all the Cotentin Peninsula, including Cherbourg, and the total area of this bridgehead was already in couple thousand square kilometers. It was strategic bridgehead because it was strategic operation by the Allied forces, and as you can see yourself, by the 24th of July and then further and further, it was expanding until obviously Allied broke out from this bridgehead, and it involved a lot of hundreds of thousands of troops on both sides. So as you can see yourself, it's very impressive, so to speak, operation, and this is bridgehead. And again, Russians don't use, for example, the term bridgehead. They use the term Platzdarm, which is Platz d'Armee, which pretty much the same thing. It's the piece of the territory where you accumulate your troops. You defend it, of course, and eventually you have to either abandon it or you have to expand it. And this Platzdarm or bridgehead has 3 types, and as you might have guessed it, one of them is strategic, it's the highest level, another of them of the operational, we're talking about probably bridgehead created by the division or tactical operational formations or the corps. And of course we have the tactical one, and the tactical one, it's basically brigade down level. And let me explain what those bridgeheads are. Basically those couple few, I don't know, maybe 3 bridgeheads, of which Ukraine or armed forces of Ukraine are trying to create there, well, as I already stated, those idiots from the American media, which all of them militarily illiterate, including this Jonathan dude from CNN, who spent all time in, just in Russia and Ukraine. He reported from Afghanistan. And again, you will not find his CV, because evidently this is some kind of the dude who have no clue what he's talking about. But look at this. As I already stated yesterday regarding those bridgeheads, Mr. Saldo, the basically head of the Kherson region, already stated that the Russian armed forces block units of the Ukrainian army that crossed to the left bank of Dnieper River in the village of Krinky, for example. And the breadth, so to speak, of the bridgehead there is something like on the order of 1 to 2 kilometers and in depth of 1 kilometer. So, I mean, they're not even attacking Russian forces. They're not even breaking through any defenses. They basically go in, basically lodge themselves into those swamps. And just to demonstrate to you how full of crap all these people in American corporate media are, here is the yesterday's basically testimony of one of the, as you can see yourself, 16 November 2023, of the captured soldier of the Armed Forces of Ukraine from the 36th Marine Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, which was tasked with the committing suicide. And look what he talks about. According to him, hundreds of corpses remained in the forest, which was supposed to be stormed by the soldiers of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, which lie in trenches and on the roads, because, well, there is this. Everything is turned into the ground, and he's talking about ground, basically mass, by cops and artillery. So, and as I already stated, I am on record. Pentagon, NATO people, they do not understand what they are doing because they are illiterate themselves. They never planned anything of this nature. So the only thing they can provide for is planning for their company max battalion type groups, tactical groups, try to land into the swamp basically and undefended positions. The only thing that they have at that time, when they started to, a couple of weeks ago, throw those corpses over the Dnieper River, was to get whatever the best they have provided by United States in terms of the electronic warfare, trying to jam basically signals for Lancet drones and other type of the unmanned aerial vehicles, and of course pulling there all kinds of the mobile artillery, so to shoot at Russian positions, trying to get them on the other side of the Dnieper River. Well, the result is really pathetic. So the farthest, and again, we have to understand, it's a tactical. And they say, oh, they penetrated 5 kilometers. Well, yeah, what does it mean penetrated 5 kilometers? In the American corporate media and the Pentagon specialists, which there are none really, trying to describe to them, or maybe they're just making this thing up, that, oh yeah, they advanced somewhere to 5 kilometers. That means what? They have like squad, maybe a platoon. They reached into some kind of the territory up to 5 kilometers from the shore, and they have been annihilated. And as you saw yourself, basically, it's Russians do not bother even really report too much on that because there's nothing to report. They get in, they try to create dislodgement, so to speak, and then, of course, it is completely destroyed, wiped out, no matter what kind of the electronic warfare jamming techniques they use and whatever the artillery they have, because basically, it's the same PR actions which are all about somehow showing that Ukraine is still moving and it needs help in terms of the finances and equipment. Well, sure, let them continue to provide this. Russians don't care. But when you look attentively at this whole situation, and especially when you see yourself how they move with basically rubber boats, here's the demonstration to you how Russians do in the serious engineering preparation for the seizing of the bridgehead. And here it is. This is from Lester Grau and Bartel's treatise, Russian Way of War. And they explain to you about the hasty attack across a water obstacle from the march, for example. And here they tell you how it happens. You can see yourself and you can compare the rubber boats, and here how actual the basically crossing the river looks like. And just on this photo alone, you can see yourself about one, platoon plus 2 platoons, let's say, of the. In reality, platoon is the 3 tanks, but you have 1 full platoon. You have MTLB, Mataliga, famous Mataliga, which is the evacuation vehicle. You have another tank on the other side of the pontoon bridge. So basically what you have to see here, they explain. The crossing plane designates the crossing sector, the departure area, the attack crossing line, 1 to 2 kilometers from the water's edge, the troop embarkation of cargo loading area, 5 to 6 kilometers from the water's edge. This is, for example, which Ukraine doesn't have. They cannot do that because they will be immediately detected and annihilated. So what's left? You put 1 squad into a rubber boat, throw it on the other, basically shore. It gets annihilated there, and there you go. But CNN reports that, you know what, they create some kind of bridgeheads. And so they explain, and the tank sealing area for snorkeling, and so on and on and on. So what's the point of those bridgeheads or tow holds or whatever the hell they use? I mean, those morons from CNN and whatever the other news is basically to provide some bodies there to report on something. Those bodies are by now, while I'm talking to you, are already killed or maimed beyond recognition. And so here is, and of course, rubber boats, you cannot deliver anything in terms of tanks, in terms of something which allows you to expand the bridgehead. So what is this? It's basically fiery hell, as Mr. Saldo described it yesterday, and they all get killed or taken prisoners. And here is how Grau and Bartels explain how Russians planned it. A deliberate attack will normally involve far more artillery and aviation preparation and involve an attack from the march through friendly forces in contact with the enemy. Smoke, air defense, and counter-battery efforts will be particularly critical. Well, as you can see yourself, even the very basic bottom line requirements for real river crossing and creating the bridgehead, which could be expanded, are not met by the Ukraine, and as is expected, they are all killed. So there you go. But this is your corporate American media, and I mean, what can I say? This also makes a very interesting case against their statements like this. And for example, Wall Street Journal, and you know what, it's time to end magical thinking about Russia's defeat. Putin has withstood the West's best efforts to reverse his invasion of Ukraine, and his hold on power is firm. The US and its allies need a new strategy. Containment. Well, I have news. Containment also not gonna work, but it's the separate issue to discuss because, and again, it is all about illiteracy and complete incompetence of pretty much all military political elite of the United States, let alone the European elites. And containment, what they think, they want to repeat because they are one-trick dogs. You know, they're just, you know, all those Kissingers, all those, you know, the elders of American foreign policy, or all present, you know, American so-called geopolitical thinkers or strategists. None of them really exist and satisfy even the most basic requirements for the people of good competence. They want to repeat this containment. They want to repeat this Iron Curtain. Good luck with them. Russia doesn't need Europe, so yeah, they can. Fact is, there are many voices in Russia which call on erecting this Iron Curtain, because you know what, with the lands where you have 42 genders, you have like serious issues with those people, and Russians very much are vocal about it. So, and this is not just the factor of this. We of course suddenly go back to the CNN, and guess what? Even CNN begins reporting, and it was today, that US is running low on some weapons and ammunition to transfer to Ukraine. And again, we know that. And it's just more than that. But hey, let's take CNN, you know, at their word here. And they say, and again, they quote some Pentagon, you know, bureaucrats and all those generals who would know crap from Shinola. And among the weapon systems where there is particular concern about US stockpiles meeting Ukrainian demands are 155 millimeter artillery ammunition and Stinger anti-aircraft shoulder-fired missiles, the sources said. Some sources also raised concerns about U.S. production of additional weapon systems, including HARMS anti-radiation missiles, GM-LRS surface-to-surface missiles, and the portable Javelin anti-tank missiles. All the U.S. has moved to ramp up production for those and other systems. All of those systems proved to be absolutely bonkers, and failures, and as practically any NATO and US produced weapon system, but some sources, as you can see yourself, of the seriousness of the problem is a source of debate within the Defense Department, as they say. Okay, let them debate, but you cannot basically turn this machine of American military-industrial congressional complex, which was busy making money and were not prepared to fight any serious war. They never were. And a major manufacturing challenge. They report on that one reason for the concern about low stockpiles is that the U.S. industrial base is having difficulty keeping up with demand quickly enough. The sources said, in addition, European allies cannot sufficiently backfill Ukrainian military requests due to their need to maintain to their own forces supplies. And as you may recall, I am constantly on the record that United States doesn't have economic and industrial wherewithal to really conduct serious modern 21st century war. Yes, even Colonel McGregor, who sometimes makes so many gaffes about Russia and Red Army, but even he says that it is paradigm shift. And they better face up to reality that they lost the arms race. United States lost the arms race, and it is being right now exposed for the profound depth and scale and scope of this loss. I cannot stress enough how serious it is. And if this hasn't been enough, Russians begin to literally kind of rub this salt into the wound of the humiliated West. And let me put it this way. For example, the news from the Russian RIA News, and it's not only Russian RIA News, you can see yourself all those things happening in the, for example, currently Dubai Air Show. And now it is official that second stage engine, which is IL-51F, which is known also as the Product 30 or SDL 30, is now in serial production. And all 22 Su-57s which are coming online for Russia in 2024 will be equipped with this engine, which is state-of-the-art. And they also added, as they said, that fighter is now undergoing flight test with the second stage engine and already within the framework of the current serial contract. So, yes, there's nothing to add, you think, or yes? No. There is more to Su-57, although, as you can see yourself, here's a Sukhoi S-75, which was demonstrated with this AL-51F, which is the new generation engine. And here this engine is shown 2 years ago, and also, I believe, wherever it was, Dubai or what have you, one of the basically the military exhibitions. And so it is now officially in action, and Su-57s are being equipped with that. But there is another thing, and this is the thing which we really need to keep in mind. As you can see yourself, in 2020, almost 3 years ago, actually, more than 3 years ago, Russia basically announced that it completed tests and created the first working prototype of the radiophotonic radar, which is known as ROFAR. It has come to an end. This was told by the general director of the Vega concern, Vyacheslav Mikhaev. And as military expert Yuri Knutov, very famous man actually, he runs also the Museum for the Air Defense, and he is technically extremely competent man and well connected, as you might expect. As military expert Yuri Knutov noted earlier, the ROFAR complex may enter service in the near future. It will be introduced into the 5th generation of Su-57 fighters. We now know that it is being introduced to the new models. He drew attention to the fact that several countries are trying to create a similar system, but at the moment they do not have such technologies. Russia's breakthrough with the Rofar radar for Su-57, according to the expert, will dispel the skepticism of the Americans. Well, by now, and it was done 2 years before the start of the special military operation, but by now nobody really cares about American or any NATO skepticism because it doesn't matter. And what Rofar means, this radio photonics, very little is known in terms of its practical, the way it's constructed by Russians. All the photos which you have of it, alleged photos, are not photos of this radar. They are photos of all kinds of the Zhuk modifications of the ISA, active electronically scanned array radar. No, but it's already evidently on a new generation of Su-57s, and that means that Su-57 gets pretty much about the same capabilities as A-50U and M AVAX, and it can basically detect targets at the range of 500 kilometers. And it's more than that. It's not going to be just the point on the liquid crystal multifunctional display inside the aircraft. No, it will be actually 3D vision of the target, up to the point that you will be able to identify even the face of the pilot. So that's what Rofar gives you. It obviously changes completely the issue of the targeting and completely the issue of the delivery of the long-range fires by such such carriers as Su-57 or other aircraft of Russian Air Force, such as Su-35 or Su-30 SM, which will be also provided the targeting by Su-57. So this is a revolutionary development, but if that hasn't been enough, we have now the, how to put it politely, this thing. RIA Novosti reports that Borei submarine here underwater further than American submarines, media write. What are the media which they write that Borei, it's actually the name of the sonar, or what is called hydroacoustic complex, MGK, is called the Irtish Amphora, B600. For Borei, it goes with the B letter, which means for Borei, but actually Yasin class Project 885 are also armed equipped with this type of the sonar and its massive signal processing power. And as they call Borei with their sonar station here underwater 1.5 times further than American submarines. And what does it mean? Well, it means a lot of things, and I don't want to go in this because I try to keep basically my videos within the 30-35 minute format, because otherwise people will not really can maintain their attention. So, and here we have this. If you look at this publication, I talked about it, Arsenal Отечества. This is the very respectable in the military environment, Russian military environment publication. And Mr. Leonkov, whom I mention very often, writes for this. And as you can see yourself, for example, on the 29th August 23, they talk about the missile armaments for fifth generation aircraft. But what is, for example, important in this Arsenal Отечества, which is the arsenal of fatherland, is they explain how the United States lost their arms race, which is only part of it. You have to go and look at every specific part. For example, like hypersonics, United States have nothing. So you go into their nuclear-powered submarines and their new missile weaponry, US has nothing. And so you go on and on and on, and you look at every separate indicator of this. For example, and as they write, the same Leonkov, Yermolayev, and Mikhailov, and these are all former or current senior officer of Russian armed forces. They said that the military operation in Syria has shown that aviation weapons have ceased to solve the task of hitting well-protected targets, both air and ground. The creation of a layered air defense system, including electronic warfare, air force, and air defense systems in countries such as Russia, China, and Venezuela, called into question the implementation of the main task of the basic doctrine of the United States Air Force, which assessed and divided any military conflict involving the Air Force into three stages. First, the U.S. Army, with support of Air Force, stops the advance of enemy troops. The Air Force suppresses air defenses, strikes at headquarters, reserves, and supply lines. Well, wet fantasies. Obviously, you cannot do that with a modern, serious army, because you will have the same thing done to you. But this is how the strategic and doctrinal thinking goes in the United States. Then the second phase, building up a power group of troops in the theater of operation, exhausting enemy troops with air strikes on the command and control system, the main grouping. Yeah, good luck with that against S-400, S-350, and Russian Air Force, for example. Yeah, or for that matter, Chinese Air Force, which is even larger than U.S. Air Force. And of course, a turning point in war and transition to a decisive counteroffensive, the defeat of the enemy grouping. And this all looks like, those people who love, I adore, this is my favorite movie of all time, Aliens. By James Cameron, but you remember Lieutenant Gorman, who suddenly gets into the real combat operation with the aliens, and he tries to command his squad, which is caught into this facility, and because he doesn't understand what is happening, he doesn't know what to do, he begins to repeat all those, lay the defensive fire, retreat to this and that, while the guys are just dying, every second. And you can see how the actor, I don't remember his name, he plays perfectly this confusion and inability to even adapt, until Ripley, of course, runs into this whole thing and says, just get them out of there. And that's exactly how the American military doctrine and strategies are built. Let's create a plan, let's kind of command all these things, but then bang, and they suddenly face the situation that arms race is lost across the whole spectrum of the armament and operational and tactical concepts of their use. So, and when you look at this, and I just showed you that Russians are really not kind of impressed, to put it politely. And when you now see this execution, and especially this pathos-ridden reporting on these toeholds or bridgeheads, what have you, well, you basically, those bridgeheads are littered with corpses. I mean, you can look it up. I mean, there are videos out there on different platforms. It's horrifying. Many women now, very many women. It's unbelievable. Russian soldiers are just getting into those trenches and commenting, my God, they should have stayed home, but they just been slaughtered. So, and this is what I wanted to tell you in terms of the arms race. But to conclude this, I want to point out the very good news. First, I'm happy that Dmitry Orlov underwent his brain tumor removing operation beautifully. It was benign. He feels much better. And here's his Dmitry's today's post on one of the Russian platforms. And they take this from the Levada Center, which is, by the way, of course, supported by the Western NGOs, and it's basically identified as the foreign agent. But even Levada Center, doing this in October of 2003 to 23, hey, how do Russians really feel? As you can see yourself, 81% of Russians feel excellent, good, satisfactory. 18% terrible, bad, dissatisfactory. And it's basically, as Dmitry correctly stated, isn't it a mirror image of how Americans and Europeans feel these days? So there you go. Wonderful return with Dmitry, with his intellect and his, just being kind of quirkiness, and that's the news. And to conclude today, obviously, I cannot miss this. You know what? This is a great stuff. As you can see yourself, CIA uncovered Chinese plot to just sit back and enjoy collapse of the United States. So you see, and as you can see yourself, a recent photo of Communist Party of China President Xi Jinping actively engaged in the aggressive observation of the American decay. I mean, that pretty much sums it up for today, guys. And what can I say? This is something for you for the weekend. And as always, guys, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please buy me a coffee and two, or support me on Patreon. This will allow me to continue to do what I'm doing. So, what can I say? Have a nice weekend for you guys, and thank God it's Friday. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.